Hello everyone, welcome to Flutter Quiz League Day 3. And today, as you all know, that we have Rao Noman with us. Noman, how are you?
I'm fine, Walid. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine too. So before I formally introduce Noman, let's just go through the same stuff that we used to go through every day. So let's just see that a little intro about Flutter, and then we'll see that how this whole quiz thing goes. So Flutter is basically cross-platform UI toolkit, and you can build native apps on mobile, on web, on desktop, on multiple platforms with single code base. So in my terms, like Flutter is a literal cross-platform UI toolkit, and you can the whole compilation is done natively with the architecture. So anything that you compile, it is natively compiled as a native native complete application. So this is a little intro about Flutter. It uses Dart. The Dart is Google's own language, and that is Google's using since a long time. So it uses Dart as a wrapper over the native thing. So what about this Flutter Quiz League? So this quiz league had five events, alternate days, and we will be having we had two already done. Today is the third one, and we have a 30-minute talk followed by a 15-minute online quiz. And the criteria for quiz winners is fastest fingers first. The fastest fingers first will be eligible to get a Flutter box through us. Once again, I would like to intimate this, that and the Flutter boxes will be delivered to addresses within Pakistan only. We are not currently in a situation to deliver them uh, abroad, outside Pakistan. So currently we are stick to addresses in Pakistan only. So this was all about the league. We have this basic schedule for our event. So today is Rao Noman's talk. He's from Expert Digital. I'll be introducing him formally after a few slides. We had Mace from Saudi. We have Sakina Abbas from Reactory, and further in the upcoming two next events, we will be having Taha Ali and we will be having Nawal from Jeddah with us as a speakers for this event. So some rules about the quiz. In order to be able to attend the quiz, you will have to have attend. You have to attend the talk completely, because ideally all the questions in the quiz are from the talk. So the speakers, they have and the talk that they are giving, the quiz will be from the talk. So you better listen to the talk very carefully. Second thing, you need to attempt the quiz as fast as possible. I repeat it every time whenever I am giving this intro. So this is not about getting a 10 on 10 on a quiz competition. If you get a 10 and you get it in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, that's of no use, because it's a ratio of correct question, number of correct answers, with respect to the minimum time that you have taken. So you need to answer right questions in less possible time. So if you answer 6 or 7 right questions in first 2 to 3 minutes, you have a lot better chance of winning the box. You need to sign in through Google. So please, you keep your browsers signed in with Google, so that when I share the link, so you don't need to sign in and waste your precious few seconds. I would like to tell you that I have been compiling the results of the last two quizzes, and I would like to tell you that with a difference of 2 or 3 seconds, we had winners. So you see that how much important the time is. So we recommend that you already have your browsers with Google sign in, and you don't open the link in an incognito mode. So otherwise you will be going to sign in again, and then you will waste a lot of precious few seconds for your quiz. So once the quiz is completed, you submit the quiz. That's when the time ends. Like that's the time that you have taken to complete the quiz. So and we recommend that those who have won already, they should not participate again, because we will not be giving Flutter boxes to people who already have won. So those who have won, they are, they are recommended that they should give other people the chances to win, so they can, they can view the quiz, they can attend to, if they want. But we recommend that they should refrain from competing it actually, so others can get the chance. So without further, wasting any more time, let me introduce Rao Noman. Rao Noman has been working with me since, since the beginning, since we were in our previous offices. So he has been working on Flutter. He is really good at iOS native, and currently he's working on Kony and, the platforms, that mobile development platform, the ready to build UI platforms that the fintech provides. So he's currently working on that. He has been working with me on Xamarin, on Flutter, and he has been, a part of Flutter Pakistan since this whole community was started. So he's, initial contributor of Flutter Pakistan. He has always been interested in a lot of tech and a lot of, learning stuff and exploring different platforms, different tech platforms. So today he's giving some insights about different state management techniques, and he'll tell you how to, manage states, and all of that will be obviously theory, because we have to have a quiz at the end. So let's just not waste further more time. Numan, over to you. I am just removing my screen and I am adding your screen. So over to you. Thank you, Numan.
Thanks, Walid. Highly appreciated uh, about the Flutter brief introduction and the introduction. Let's start. Um First of all, I will announce that today's topic is manage the confused states in Flutter. So, as previously, Walid should give me a brief introduction about me as a speaker. So let me introduce a brief as well. My name is Rao Noman, and I'm a Flutter enthusiast. In past, I've worked in various projects of Flutter and cross-platform worlds like Xamarin and Kony, and I'm the certified Kony developer as well. And I do a lot of work in the banking domain as well by using Flutter and different cross-platform as well. So, without wasting our time, goes towards the today's topic. So basically, the today's topic is about uh, the state management, the confused techniques of the state management. So first, we will get a little brief introduction about what is the state, then then we move to the forward. So basically, what is the state? As for the beginner, the Flutter basically manage its widgets data synchronously uh, over the lifetime. So states basically is the lifetime of the data that reads or render or via widgets. So basically the whole app scenarios of the widgets was called and run through a state. So there's a technique to manage the data is that once I called in a short word is that state is basically the data which your app using, utilizing or shown. So, what is the state management? When we talk about the state management in Flutter, we are actually about the uh, combining of any of the architecture and other sort of things like if we need to implement any dependency injection, any data management, or calling anything from APIs or get data and show on it to my screens of front end of a mobile. So where the state managements come in, because we are going there to manage our data. So by default, if we go with the simple Flutter or in other words, I said it to the vanilla Flutter. So we will go through the state management in which Flutter will provide a set state scenario in which there's a hierarchy of a tree, and in if I there need to be a change in any place in any scenario uh, to re-render the data of any change or any tappable way whether you so we use the set string and the widget tree refresh all its childrens, and the new data will automatically reflect on the UI. Fine, perfect. So but there are something which is not good enough in simple or vanilla Flutter. It state changes because there are some multiple places where data got managed, because you will call on the login screen on side screen, on the single screen, on login screen, and goes towards in the dashboard, and there's a lot of there. So there the management of the states are different. At many points, the static state will manage the data. So um, uh, uh, when we call it with the multiple data management, so Flutter, so it's a basically not a reusable code technique, because we there's a code logic mixing with the business logic, and which breaks the many coding principles, like violated the coding principle. So it's good with a simple app. If your app is small enough, and you need to manage data from a single state, so it's fine enough. But when the size of your app increases, and it's maybe if you're writing a product, the size may be increasing, so there's a lot of problem, because when you're writing a larger scale of projects, it's possibly for you to maintain the state from a single shared state, and also make your UI logic at in different file, and make your business logic different side, your data management on different side. So so we need some good architecture to separate these logics, separate app UI from the models, and basically manage your application and your state in a proper manner. So for that purpose, Flutter provides different state management techniques, as I said, which was possible with the vanilla Flutter as well. But the state management technique gave us more things and more management tools. So there's a lot of technique, like different approaches: block pattern, provider pattern, spoke model pattern. One from the React Native is the Redux, and same with the same comes into the Flutter as well. So these are the techniques. So without going any delay, let's go towards our first topic about the architecture, the scope model. And it is the simplest approach to manage the state among all the design patterns. The simplest would mean it is not as much as complex as other. So So what is the scope model? Basically, it is a utility of passing data from model to parent widget and its descendants. Mean, if I have a model, for example, I need to get a data from the user, and so I created a model, and then I need to show the user all info on my modified screen. So I created the widgets, and there are some parent widget. So basically, scope model, what is need to be doing here is basically the middleware for all over the things from the model and shown the UI. And once there's a change, it will call the notify listener. So my state will be managed from a single perspective, from the single point, and it will changes the notify to the listeners to change its state whenever a change, not the whole tree. So the scope model is the easiest approach for widgets to access the shared data, and allow you to conveniently consolidate your app from a wide state of varieties and business logics, and a lot of different things, like scope model. If we go with the root of the scope model basics, it has a three concepts. Like, first is the model, and in model class, whenever the state of your variables we want, as well as to maintain our business logic, which API calls want to do, and which type of data user want. And next, for the screen needs to access this state, and we also need to wrap up our everything with the scope model. So what is the scope model? Scope model is basically the head of the head of the parent of the widgets, and it is the referring to the instance of the current model which you assign to that widget. And for any of the child widget that need to access our state, we simply wrap them into the scope model for scope descent. For example, if we have a model of user, so I wrap up my data which need to be shown on the user data on the screen. So I wrap up that widget in the scope model descent widget. So whatever we wrapped there automatically react to our state, because the notify listener call whenever there's a change in the model. So what I like most about this solution is that the complex architecture, large amount of boilerplate code we have to maintain to achieve. So this, but if you have a lot of code and I need to maintain, so it's basically uh, it basically separated my states. Like I have a model, so it's fine. I will take my model on the other file. I will take my business logic in the other, and I will take my UI from in the different file. So a state would be the menu. So basically, in the changes over time will interact with the UI, and once or more stateful widgets can be re-rendered easily if there are changes. And as I described, that the model class representing a thing in your app. So let's go with the another simple example. For example, I have encountered app with Flutter created Flutter provided at its by default. So what happened is that I need a model in which I have an counter widget. Counter widget basically counter is an counter is an basically an uh, value of a variable, and once my button is set. So basically, what is the hierarchy of my model? My scope model has an animator with an inherited widget. Inherited widget is just an widget which wrap my widgets, which have text and button. So basically, button is which the user interact with, and the text which user is shown. So whenever I click a button, it will call an increment event, right? What increment event does? Increment event just change the state of the counter in the model. So whenever there is a change in the counter, it will it will it will notify a listener, and it will automatically state update the state of the text. So when it's come to the one and the user will tap to the button, there's an increment one to the two, and then it's go to the scope model, and scope model will read the current state and show the text from one to two. So there's a little chunk of a code as I described. There's a counter model, and I extend it to the model class, and my model class has a counter of 0, and I create a getter property of its which will return the counter value for the encapsulation purpose, and I created an increment function. Basically, what this incremented function calls whenever whatever the state of the counter, it will increment in one. That's it. And after it, it immediately called the notify listener. So basically, if we skip this part of the notify listener, whenever you change the state, the value of the counter will change, but it will not reflect it to the UI. So when the notify listener called, it wrap up, and it's read the counter value from its wherever in the memory it's pointed, and notify the listener. So what notify listener done is notify listener basically call the UI tree and read where this counter variable is need to be shown, and just go there and re-render only the dat widget. So basically, the main benefit is that the scope model will reduce my set state tree to re-render from re-render the whole widget to a single to re-render where the state of widget would be changed, right? And in front of you, there are changes, uh, like your model was called with the reference, and you can easily implement the model scope model, and you will provide that model class, and it will read on easily on the screen. So what scope model design will do, I will explain it previously as well. The model quarter and read it value and shows on the in the mobile UI screen. So it's not a big problem. It's an easy code. So next our architecture technique for the Flutter state management is the block. Basically, I like it the most. So what is the block? Big block is basically my middleware, which stands for bridge logic component. And what block does basically, block is used for the same purpose, but it has its own advantages as well. And it is also used for the same to separate it the US as all the architecture patterns do. And I also explained it the scope model as well. So basically what block it's a Google created pattern. When Google is announced it, the block pattern is have some functionality, like it use the reactive dart programming to handle the flow of data within the app. And basically what is a block used like an observer pattern based as an event, and it's a subscriber, and all events and subscribers have a communication to listen whenever there any instruction of change from the event. So it's a subscriber to, so they will react on this. So with your block basically is in like an observer. It's a middleware pattern between source of data in your app, and widget that needs to read the data. uh, Basically what blocks done is that it receives streams event data from the source, and handle the required business logics, and publish the streams of data, changes widgets, and which widgets are listening them or interested them to be shown the changes. And block implements, as I previously said, like a pipe, from which you can flow in the water from one end, and it will goes out from the second end. So basically it's consist of a sink from which the data is given out, and the stream will continuously listening to the data, and asynchronously, and give it to the widget to show on of that. So basically there's also some events like I need to call the increment in the counter app, I need to increment on the button click, so it's an event. So what's the state? Counter will changes states from 0 to 1, so on. And whenever the state changes, there is a transition. Transition means when the state has an output, that the transition will call to reflect it to the streams outside. So the sync, basically both the provider and stream controller, you can add event data into the sync and listen them as in string data, output as an stream. The stream controller, we can use the stream controller can be accessed, which is a part of a data sync library. And in simply I can say that the uh, it's an easiest way. It is as easy when you get the when you get the concept very well. So this diagram basically shows what I briefly described, that there's a sink in which the data should be flown out, and there's a business logic whenever if you need to be implement anything. The stream controller will immediately reflect to the stream, and streams are continuously listening. So for block, you need to be a good knowledge of streams and RX dot. So there's a code example which shows you how to use the guard dart in our wrapping. So basically, there's a counter block, same as the scope model, but not extended. It has an counter variable which is initiated, and I need to be get an final state where the stream will be listened, and counter will add. Means basically what the counter should have the previous state. When the counter add event called, you can add the counter plus plus event, and if there's any change in the decrement, you can use the same counter block with the decrement event. So when you go to the main app, you create it and an app block and make it to the run app, and provided the initial block. And the initial block, you will you will wrap up your material app in the block provider. Basically block provider tell us where with which your app would be, which it will listen the block model. So over to into the our next architecture technique about the provider. So what is the provider? Basically provider is also the as same architecture technique, and it is also used to implement the business logic and differentiate the business logic from app logic. And you can use the model, but it has its own benefits. It has its own benefits and utilization. So what basically provider is, it is an easiest or it use basically provider is the most basic part, by providing a widget free, and you can use the its value and expose it whenever whenever the value is who want to listen the state, you will expose it, and the provider will listen it and shown it to as per their need. So there's a lot of different things in the provider, like you need to be use the listenable provider, in which a specific listenable object. I mean, if you need to show a state on a single instance or a single place, listenable will listen to objects, and ask the widgets which depends on that whole uh, tree on it and rebuild whenever there is a change. Whenever there is a change means whenever the listener called, they will change it and they will call it. So there's also a change notifier which is very important, and change not basically a specific listener provider of change notifier, and it will automatically call whenever you dispose your listener when needed. It's necessary to do it because there's a memory leakage if you not do that, because you're continuously going to be change notifier to listen. Other things, other main concept of the valuable listener provider: listen the valuable listener and only expose the values wherever that need is. We have a stream provider, which listen to a stream and expose the latest value to the front end where the widgets need to be re-render the UI. So provider is the most basically, and you can use it to provide the value of data model object to anywhere in the widget tree. However, it would help you to update the widget tree when the value change. But unlike the basic providers widgets, the change notify listeners for the changes in the model as it described in the work where the changes occur. So there's a law, and another concept also is the consumer. So basically what consumer is, does the consumer widgets rebuild any widget below it. For example, if there's a widget of tree and there's a change occur in the any of the down widgets, so it will whenever call the notify listener and get called. So whatever the thing which needs on which action you need to change the state or update the state, the consumer you can provide is use a context of provider of and that, and set the listener. And if the listener will be the set it by the value to the true, so it will read out the value and show in the UI as per the need. Sorry. So let's dive into the simple code. So what happened is, it's a simple class. I named it as a counter. It's depend upon you. You need to be use the change notifier for it. Uh, Same as that, the scope model, you have a counter. You set the init property of it, and this dot counter will update whenever the instance is created, and get counter will return out the value of the counter, and set counter will set the counter value to the initial value. So there's an action like void increment. Uh, what increment property does is that if you need any change in the counter, for example, you start with the counter value from the zero, and you tapped on a button. On the tapping of the button, the increment function got called, the event got fired. So what notify listener do, as in same in the scope model, it will alert the state to wait, there's some change in the counter value. So there's a provider it will need to allow or alarm to all the widget that were using it. So when it goes to the front end tab of the logic, there's an home widget, like and in which I defined my counter. What is the counter? Counter is basically that one, the model name. Okay. So I use the counter, and the builder will describe it the initial state, that start counter with the initial state of zero. So whenever the change notifier will fly, it will need a initial value. So I provided it from the zero in the instant. So when we goes to the home page, and in home page I will use a consumer. What consumer does is, consumer has a counter notifier of what counter notifier is doing, and that if there is any change, it will basically return a counter notifier from its build context, and goes to a re-render when the notifier comes in, whenever any change in the state of the counter occurs. So when it goes to the build context, we take a property and give the provider a counter, and the provider has a type of our model and pass the context of that widget. Basically context will use to identify the widget from the t from which widget the change call from the state, right? So when it goes down to the text where we need to read out the counter value, what it does, it will take the counter and get the counter get the counter values, that one, it's a property which will return when I need any time I need the value of the counter. the property which continues. So what happened is that when user tapped on the any of the event, it will file the increment event, and increment event just goes and increment the counter. The counter event will call the notify listener, and notify listener will goes and call the state, give wait there's a change in a state. So when there is a change in state, the provider dot office comes on. So it will take where this model will utilize as a reference. So when it goes to the reference, it will take to the text, and goes down to the widget code down, and it saw there's a text widget in which I need to get counter value. So so the state goes there and get the counter value, and when it goes to the counter value there, and it will take the counter value readout from the memory and call the change state, and which it will goes and only render out the specific one, the change, um, and shown it to the UI. So when is it when it's also good when you need any animation, like you need any dependency injection in your APIs. So if I have a scenario to implement the dependency injection, so it's very good to use the provider pattern in that, because it use the consumers which will decide the things on the initial state. So when I take if when I take the initial state, so my app will easily know which things to be need to be rendered on the initial. So apart from the provider, apart from the scope model, apart from the block redux and other things, it it's depend upon the developer, that who can identify and the knowledge about all the things, and uh, identify the pattern usage and implement it's where the need. For example, it's not a developer who will say, okay, the block is the very good one, and I give no. You need to take the readout and understand the whole scenario and use that pattern, that architecture technique and pattern there. So what it goes around that it will help you to maintain the large scale of the application with the easiest way, because you need to shuffle a few from the all the states management techniques to identify and easily manage your project. So thank you, and these all things hope worthwhile for you guys, and keep coding and learn Flutter. It's a very good mobile SDKs for the developer guys. So over to you to Walid.
Thank you, Noman. This was, great, great talk. There have some questions from a lot of people. So I would want that you should, share your LinkedIn or Twitter or somewhere people can contact you, so that you can just write it up here in your slide. You can just like I'm just removing your slide. You just write it in a slide, and I'll show it again in a few moments. So thank you, Noman. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. Till you are, writing your social media handles on your slides, I will just tell the people that we'll be starting in the quiz uh, in around at around 9. It's 9:04 right now, right? So we can start at 9:05 if Noman is, done with the social media handle links and all that. So, so guys, quiz will consist of 10 questions, and it will be finished. Like we will stop the responses in 15 minutes. So you have total of 15 minutes. I guess 15 minutes won't take long, because the quiz is, really fast, and people are really, giving fast answers there. So Numan, have you done that link
Yeah,
thing?
just give me a moment. I'm taking my LinkedIn reel on the slides or
So
shared in the
you
chat.
just no, you just send me in the private chat. I'll share it there
Okay,
in the comments.
just give me a moment.
So, guys, thank you for listening. And we'll begin the quiz in about 1 or 2 minutes. And I'll share the link of the quiz in the comments as well. Yes, I'll do that. Uh, but first, let me share Noman's social media handle and then we'll share the quiz.
Yeah, Valid, I shared it on you too on private chat. You got it?
No, I guess not. In StreamYard private chat, right? You
Uh,
share it in StreamYard private chat.
okay. Oh, you got it, right?
Yep, got it. So here, guys, I just shared Noman's LinkedIn, so you can contact him and you can answer all. You can ask all your questions that you just asked. They are pretty good questions. I appreciate that people are thinking that way, and I would be very willing to answer them. But we have the quiz, so let's just move on to the quiz. So it's 9:06 precisely, and I'm sharing it at 9:06. So we'll just finish the quiz in 15 minutes. So the quiz starts now, and I'm sharing the link there in the comments as well and on the screen as well. So it's 9:07. The quiz starts at 9:07. Best of luck, guys.